Hi everyone, and welcome to the Stitch Sessions, and welcome to this month's segment in our Life's a Beach crochet series. For the month of October, we are showing off our beach kimono cover-up. And in fact, we are revisiting another beach location. You may recall for our April beach location, we visited Coburg Beach. And at the time we went there, it was pretty much still in the midst of the pandemic, and the beach was in fact closed. So we revisited this summer and the beach was open. We're so excited. It was so beautiful to be able to actually walk out on this beautiful, expansive beach side on the north side of Lake Ontario. And if you're looking for more detailed information about this beach, go ahead and check out that tutorial. It's the project we created called the Summertime Tea, and that was April's beach project. So for today, what we're going to do is we're just going to dive right into the project. And you can see here, as I'm modeling it, that it can be fairly long. You can make it longer if you like, but I found that this was the perfect length for a beach cover-up. And actually what's really neat about this design is we created this kimono using the Raglan style technique. So, which I think you'll find very interesting, especially if you've got some beautiful self-striping yarn like I managed to get for this project. What I love about this kimono is it's not only perfect as a beach cover-up, but it's also a great lightweight vest or sweater you could wear in the spring or even in the fall. You know, those days when things are a little bit cool but not quite cold, not quite hot. It's really, really a great versatile garment for that reason. So without further ado, let's grab all of our materials and let's get stitching up our beach kimono. Okay, so let's dive in. I'm going to start right away with the yarn I'm using for this project. It is absolutely gorgeous, and it is YarnArt. This is the company that I got it from. Now, I found this yarn on Amazon. It was not cheap. However, this comes in a cake that has 1,000 meters or 1,093 yards. So it's 250 grams. There is a lot in here, okay? I think I paid about $27 or $28 Canadian. It is a fine weight number 2, and it is 55% cotton and 45% pack. I'm not sure what that is. And this was shipped from Bulgaria. So it is made in Turkey, and I fell in love with how gorgeous the color gradient changes. It's absolutely divine. So for me, this was worth the project. I got 2 cakes. As always, it all depends on how long you're going to make your project, how long or short. And I figured for a kimono, it's always best to get a little bit more than not have enough. And I will say, by the way, I will leave a link in the description box down below for this yarn. It took about, I think it says it'll take about 4 to 5 weeks to get to you, but I got it probably, I think, in 2.5, so it's not bad. And for me, this was worth every penny for this yarn. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's really nice and lightweight, so I'm really excited about diving in. It's called YarnArt, and by the way, they've got a ton of colors, and it's generally all in this gradient fashion, and it's beautiful, just divine. So check that out. That's what we're going to be using for our yarn for this project. Perfect for summertime lightweight items. And because I am using a lightweight number 2 yarn, I like using my 3.75 millimeter hook, also known as an F or a size 5. And I just generally don't go smaller than this. And I find for fine weight number 2 yarns, this works perfectly for me. Now, of course, as always, you're going to make sure that you have a pair of scissors and a darning needle so you can sew in your ends at the very end. Not a lot of sewing in this project, which is going to be really cool. Make sure to have a measuring tape on hand, as well as a piece of paper and a pen or pencil to write down basically just a couple of numbers you're going to need. So let's get started with our kimono. Okay, so like I said before, this is completely customizable. You can make this for any size, starting the exact same way I'm going to start, which is the beautiful thing about this project. It really is, you can make it to fit any size. And the only measurement you're going to need is the back of your neck, okay? So that all depends where you want to take your measurement. So you're going to have to take the measurement of yourself or the person you're making it for. So I just kind of drew a little neck here. Now, generally with the kimono, it's just going to, the two front panels are just going to drape over the front. So generally you want the measurement from one side of your neck to the other. Some people like measuring the back of the neck as low as right about there, just on the edges of the collarbone. I took mine somewhere between there. So just right about where my neck starts to dip here, okay? And remember that your front always needs a little bit more room anyway, around the chest area, etc. So I took my back of neck measurement from right about there. And if you're really unsure, you can always just grab maybe one of your favorite sweaters and just measure along the back of the neck there. So for me, that's 6 inches, okay? And which works out to be 15 centimeters. So that is basically it. From here, we're going to build our kimono raglan style. That means we're going to start from the neckline, from the top, and we're going to create our kimono and work our way down. So in traditional kimonos, we usually will create about 3 panels and then sew them together. And actually, there's a variety of different ways of creating kimonos, but that's the most common. So we're going to use this style, the raglan style. And by taking this measurement, we're going to start from the neck, and we're going to create the back panel as well as our front panels as we go along. So there's the shoulders there. So you're going to be able to see your front panels forming as you do your back panel. So 6 inches is what I need. And now we can start crocheting our foundation chain row. So let's get going. Okay, the other thing, by the way, I love about this yarn is all of the cakes come with this little start sticker right on the end, so you don't have to be fishing for the end. They just leave it right there, and that's where it says start, which I think is really, really cute. So I'm just going to actually snip that off now that I know where my beginning is. Now I am starting from the center, so of course if you wanted to start from the outside, you could certainly do that as well. For my kimono, I decided that I wanted the lighter color at the top, and then I wanted it to gradate darker as we went down. So that's why we were starting with the inside, which is pretty darn close to white, okay? So because I have 6 inches for my measurement, what I want to do is I want to chain up the number of chains it's going to take me to reach 6 inches. So if yours is 8 inches, you want to do the number of chains till you get 8 inches. If yours is 7, etc., etc. You get the picture. So we're going to start with a slip knot on our hook. Okay. And I know for me, with this yarn and this hook, I need to chain up a total of 35. Now, it just so happens that my number worked out to an odd number, and this is what we're going to need you to come up with. So if your number of chains ends up being an even number, just add 1 more to make it an odd number. It's really important that it's an odd number. So go ahead and do that. Begin doing your chains. And I'll meet you here shortly to show you what happens next. Okay, so I've finished chaining my 35, and I'm just double checking, and this is what you should do too, that my chain length ends up being the right measurement. Now you can see here I'm leaving it nice and relaxed. So if you have to stretch it to get those 6 inches, then I would recommend you adding a few more chains because you don't want to have to stretch it. You want the work to sit nice and natural there. Okay, so like I said, mine was 35 and it still ended up being 35, which was great. Once you have your number and it's an odd number, what we need to do now is, and actually let me just explain one more thing here. So the number of chains we've just done is what's going to run across the back. Now we just need to create a little lip, boop, on each side there, and that's what's going to create the basic shape for the front panels to drape over you. So in essence, your work is always going to take on a shape like that. So as it grows, your work is going to do this, and then that. Okay, so once you've got the length you need, then you fold it across the top here. This is your back panel, and these are your 2 front panels. So that's basically how it's going to be created. So all we're doing right now is we just need to create this initial back row here with a teeny tiny little lip on each side, and that's what's going to initiate the shaping coming down. Okay, so in order to do that, what we need to do is add an additional 2 chains for either side of your neck. So in total, you're going to have to add another 4 chains. Okay, so I have 35, and then I will end up, so there's 2 for one side and there's 2 for the next side. So that means I have 39 chains. Nice and odd number. Okay, and you want it to be nice and relaxed like that. All right, so let's go on to row 1. And basically with this project, I'm going to take you up till about row 4. And basically once you get to row 4, it's the same repetitive action, so to speak, for all subsequent rows. Okay, and then I'll just set you off to the races. So for row 1, this is still our establishing row, which is what I like to call it. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to chain 1 more, believe it or not. You're going to chain 1 more, okay? And then into the second chain from your hook, remember you never count the loop that's on your hook. You're going to insert and just place a single crochet. Okay, so there's 1. And now you're going to place a single crochet into the next one. And that's what you're going to do all the way to the end of this row. You're just simply going to place 1 single crochet into each chain all the way to the end. Okay, so once you've done 1 single crochet into each stitch, you're going to have something that looks like this. And I still have 39 stitches, which is exactly what I want. So we're now going to go on to row 2. Okay, so row 2 is where we're actually going to start creating those corners to create the shape of our work. So what we're going to do right away is we're going to chain 3 because we're going to be working with double crochet stitches. So we're going to chain 3 to give us the height of our stitch. We're going to turn our work. And right back into that very first stitch, we're going to place another double crochet. So, sorry, the chain 3 represents a double crochet, so we're going to place a double crochet into there, okay? And that's what we're going to be working with for the whole project is simply double crochets. So to create a corner, we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then we're going to go back into this stitch and place 2 more double crochets. Now, for those of you that really like doing granny square projects, or any granny shape for that matter, you'll know that usually in a corner, we normally do 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. And we are actually going to do a take on the granny shell, but in this project, instead of doing it, the shell in clusters of 3 double crochets, we're only going to be using 2 double crochets for each of our little shell clusters. Okay, so once you've created that first corner, what we're going to do, once you've created your first corner, is we're going to skip the next stitch, and into the following stitch, we're going to create another corner. That's right. So you're going to insert your hook. There we go. Insert your hook. You're going to place 2 double crochets. There's 1. Back into that same stitch. There's 2. You're going to chain 2. And then back into the same stitch again, you're going to place another 2 double crochets. And there's our second one there. Okay. So it's probably feeling like it looks a little funny to you right now. Don't worry about it. And your little tail's going to be hanging out there. So it's going to be somewhat distracting to you. But if you can kind of imagine now, this is the corner here of the back of your neck. And now we're going to work along the back. And that first corner here is just what's creating the corner to the bottom of your panel, your front panel. It will make more sense the more rows we do. Okay, from here on out, what we're going to do is we're going to skip 1 stitch, and into the following stitch, we're going to place 2 double crochets. Oops. Okay, so there's 1. Back into that same stitch, there's 2. Okay. Then I skip the next stitch, and into the following stitch, I do the same thing. And that is what we're going to do all the way across the back of your neck. So you see? You can see where that's taking shape now. Okay, so you're going to continue doing that. Skip a stitch, place 2 double crochets, skip a stitch, place 2 double crochets, all the way until you have 4 stitches left, okay? And don't forget about that extra chain we did to turn around there. That's going to count as a stitch. So I'll meet back up with you once you've finished your little mini shells. Actually, I call these mini V's because you see how they form this little V shape? A traditional V stitch would have a chain 1 in between the 2 double crochets, but I just call them mini V's. So I'll meet back up with you once you've got 4 stitches left. Okay, so I have finished my little V's going across the back. So you can see, remember that little lip? That's where it's going to take shape. So once we get through row 2, you're going to see how all the subsequent rows are just easy peasy to deal with. Okay, so I've got 4 stitches left. So remember, we have to create those other 2 corners on that side, on this side. So we're going to skip the next stitch, and into the following stitch, we're going to create a corner. So that means we are going to insert 2 double crochets all into that stitch. And then we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and back into that same stitch, you'll do another 2. So you have 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. Just like that. Okay, and now you have 2 stitches left, so you're going to skip the next one, and the very last one there is actually where we did that additional chain 1. So you want to make sure that you catch both of those loops in there. So you might want to help it along, just like that. So again, I'm placing 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 more double crochets back into that same stitch. Just like that. Okay, so now you've got this little lip created, and that's the back of your neck, and there's the other lip. Okay, so this is our base shape Done. And now you're going to see how you're going to fly through this project. You're just going to be able to mindlessly crochet away and you'll have a kimono in no time. So let's go on to row 3. So to move on to row 3, what we're going to do now is chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. You're going to turn your work. And what we're going to do is we're going to go right away into that corner. So now what we're going to do is basically always work into spaces. Now the next space happens to be a corner space. Okay, so I'm going to go right away there. And of course, in every corner, you're going to create a corner. Okay, so again, 2 double crochets, chain 2, and another 2 double crochets. So finding your spot is going to be a lot easier now. Okay, just like that. Now I'm going to go into the next space. Now the next space is actually between 2 of these little V's. So I'm going to simply place 2 double crochets. So this is the same technique we would use if you were doing granny shells, granny stripes, right? Where you're just placing a shell inside a space. Now our next space happens to be a corner space because it's a chain 2. So remember, 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets. So it's going to be really, really straightforward, very easy to see what needs to happen. Once we've established row number 2, makes it a lot easier. Okay, see, so there's another corner. So now our first corner is here, and now we have a longer side. See how it's starting to grow in length? And so with every time you place a corner, it'll give you more spaces down the side. So now we're coming up around the corner here and into our very next space. We're just going to simply place 2 double crochets. Okay, just like that. And then you find the next space and you do the same thing. So every time you go along a side, and in this case it's the back of the neck, you're going to notice that it's going to be really easy to follow and figure out what you need to do. Okay. So there you can see that a little bit of that laciness coming through, which is fantastic. And that is it. It's pretty much it, guys. Like, this is what you're going to do every time you come up to a space. You place a little V. Every time you come to a corner, you place a corner. Okay. So what you're going to do, I'm going to let you finish this row 3. When you get to your corner here, you know what to do. Chain 2, 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets. Then you're going to have a regular little V space here and then create another corner here. Once you're done this last corner, I'm going to meet up with you here so we can talk about how you would always chain up and turn your rows. Okay, so I'll meet back up with you very shortly. Okay, so I've just finished my very last corner, but I've still got these 2 stitches here. So what we're going to do is we're going to place 1 double crochet into the top of your chain 3 there. Okay, so just 1 double crochet. Whoops, be a little testy. Just like that. Okay, so that it creates a little space there. So if you remember at the beginning of row 3, when we finished that first corner, we chained up 3 and then we went right away and created the corner. So all of your odd number rows will always begin with a chain 3 and end with 1 double crochet. Now when you go up into your even rows, so we're going to go up into row 4, you're going to chain 3, 2, 3. You're going to turn your work and see how there's a space right away. You want to work into that space. So you're going to work a double crochet into that space immediately. Okay, see, so now you've got 2 doubles. So see, the odd row only had 1 and the even row will always have 2. Then you just find your next space, which happens to be that corner. Okay, so I work my corner. So this is row 4 we're working into. and then all subsequent rows will follow and repeat row 3 and 4. So I chain 2 as usual. And I tell you, once you kind of see your work grow, you're just going to laugh at how easy it really is to do this. Okay, so I've done that first corner. And see how the corner is no longer right at the edge anymore? So you're going to notice that that corner is going to get further and further away, and that's what's going to create the width of your panel. So the next space is a little shell space. So I'm just going to place my usual 2 double crochets into that space. And now I have, oh, there's another space. So as you can see, the length of your side panels and the length of your back panel will grow at the same time. That's the beautiful thing about doing this in the Raglan style. Okay, so we have a corner. We know what to do. See how easy this is? Once you see what was done in the previous row, you just repeat it. So 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets. Sorry, sometimes I speed through because I'm assuming at this point you are very comfortable with your double crochets. And if not, of course, there's always going to be a refresher tutorial down in the description box down below of our tutorials on how to do the double crochet if you're super, super new, but you're going to get lots of practice with this project. So now I'm out of the corner into the next space. I'm just going to continue as I've done before. So now these are all getting these little mini V's into these spaces. And this is what you're going to see is going to create that really pretty, airy, lacy effect. Okay, so there you go. You can see that it's, so you can see the back is growing and the panel is growing. Now don't worry right now, especially the one that has the tail. This looks a bit wonky still, but as you do more rows, it will make more sense. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set you off, go again across the back of your neck and then down the side panel. And again, I'm going to meet up with you when you get to that last corner there. Okay, so I've done the last corner on the other side. Now see how there's that, remember that chain 3? So just like we did at the beginning, we filled that space, whoops, right there. We filled that space with our 2 double crochets or the chain 3 and double crochet. So that's what we're going to do at the end of this row here. There's always going to be a chain 3 space at the end of any even numbered row. So into that space, we just simply place 2 double crochets. Okay. And then every time we begin the odd numbered row, we always start with a chain 3, turn our work, but then we go right away into the next space right there. So sometimes what happens is the space will be right underneath you, which is the case of the odd number row, or the even number row, or you will find the space just shifted over. Okay, so this is kind of starting, this is basically starting row 5, and row 4 ended off with the 2 doubles, so there's always a space. So that's basically the rule. Chain up 3 and just work into your very next space. Okay, and now we're going to go into the next corner as usual, but here's a little something. So I'm going to just place my 2 double crochets before I chain 2. Okay, I'm just going to pull this out. So we've done 4 rows so far, and I'm pretty much going to set you loose. So you can see how the shape is coming through nicely. Now, sometimes what happens is what you see kind of happening here, because the edges are not quite sharp just yet. So for some people, it really bothers them, especially the side with the tail. That's always going to look a little bit funny. And don't worry, because at the end, we'll do a little finishing trim row. But sometimes you're going to feel like your work is doing this. And that happens a lot when we're doing corners that only have the 2 double crochets. And if it really bothers you, a great way to just a little hack that you can fix it is in your corners, you can actually do a full shell stitch. So that's 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. Okay, and it's not a big deal. What it does is it gives you a few extra stitches so that your work can start to sit more relaxed. See that? Now you're going to feel like that edge is more defined. But like I said, as your work grows, it will define. But I know what it's like sometimes when it just bugs you. So you're absolutely allowed to do that. So in this case I did, and actually this is how I'm going to leave row 5, because sometimes all you need is to do a corner this way in one of your rows. It's not that you have to do this for every row. Although if you wanted to, that would be okay too, right? So you've got 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, but then you would go back and continue with your regular sets of mini V's. Okay, and actually I'll just take you up to that next corner there. So now you can see, so now you should really be able to see your work is starting to grow and take shape. Okay, so here's the next corner here. So like I said, for row 5, I'm going to do 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3. I know, guys, sometimes I repeat myself quite a bit, but I'm just always worried that, I don't want anybody to miss any important information. I want to make sure that it all makes sense. And of course, if it doesn't, just, pop me a question down below, as usual, in the description box. Okay, and I'm just going to go into that next space just so you guys can see how it's taken shape. So there you go. So for those of you that really like sharp corners, that's it. See how it's actually really taking a more defined corner? That's what you would do, okay? So my dears, I am going to leave you here because the rest is pretty much a repeat of everything we've been doing back and forth. And what you're going to do is you're going to do this for as many rows as it takes until you can drape this around your neck and the front panel comes down and will be able to meet with the back panel somewhere under your arms. Okay, and it's from there that we're then going to join this together and then work the bottom half of the top. So essentially what we're going to be doing is creating the armhole for your kimono. Now keep this in mind. When you build up your work, okay, so let's say I've got my panel here, right? And so this is, let's say this is what I've created. Once you fold this over, okay, that panel, so the back will be here. And so these are your front panels. I'm going to meet back up with you when you get the panel as long as you want for your arms to go through. Now keep in mind it's a kimono, so just because maybe you get your panel and you drape it over you and you go, okay, perfect, my underarm is here and that's where it is. You don't necessarily want to close off your armhole there because it's going to be quite tight to your arm. Now, if that's what you want to do and then create a full-on cardigan from there, totally fine. But again, this is a kimono. So kimonos sit much more loosely and relaxed. And in fact, they kind of have that little bit that drapes over. So really, we want your panel to actually do this, right? So I would maybe wait till somewhere between your underarm and your waist. That's the space where I would actually like to kind of nip in the opening for the arms so that it's really gapey and nice and loose for the arm to sit through. Oh my God, I'm a terrible artist, but hopefully you get what I'm talking about. So I'm going to come back on once my large panel is able to drape in front of me. And right around the length where I'm happy to then fold it over and cinch out where I'm going to have the armholes. Okay, so you guys have a little bit of work ahead of you. So put on your favorite show and stitch up a storm there, and I'll meet up with you when you're ready to cinch up your armholes. Okay guys, so I have now completed 43 rows, including that single crochet row we did at the very beginning. So this for me sits really nicely. It gives me a nice big gapey sleeve, which is what I like, and that is the traditional style of the kimonos. So as you can see here in this little clip here, I made sure to drape it over myself and see where the front panels would fall. And I like it just slightly below my chest area. And that gives me a nice relaxed fit for a nice gapey sleeve. So now what we're going to do is we are going to talk about how to close off the sleeve area and then continue the rest of the body. It's actually super easy. So in order to take you through closing off the sleeve, what you want to do is once you've gotten to the final row that you're happy with, and by the way, this is what I've got left of this cake. So definitely you would need 2 cakes to create something with a length. But what you're going to do is, so I've reached the end of my row here that I'm happy with. So I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to work back until I get to that very first corner. So I'm going to let you do that because I know by now you know how to do that. So go back across, work your way in the mini shells or the mini V's, and I'm going to meet up with you when you hit this first corner here. Okay, so just stop short of the corner. I'll meet you back up when you've done a mini V in that second last space. Okay guys, so I've worked my way back across to my very first corner. So I just finished placing that last little mini V there, and now I'm in the corner. So I'm going to begin as usual. I'm going to place 2 double crochets. Okay, but instead of chaining 3 this time, what I'm going to do, I'm going to skip all of these stitches until I get to my very next corner. So this will be, remember how you folded your kimono down? This is going to be what forms your armhole. So all you're going to do, and of course you want to make sure that the sides face the same. So you just make sure that they're nice and even here. And you're just going to go into this corner here and just directly place your next 2 double crochets into this corner. So we do not chain 2 here, okay? We just go immediately into the next corner and do our 2 double crochets. Just like that. And now you have joined to create your first armhole. See? Easy. Told you it was easy. Don't worry. I know this probably feels a little bit flimsy to you, but when we come back around in continuous rounds, that'll get fortified. Now all you're going to do is you're just going to continue along as usual, placing 2 double crochets into each space. Okay, just like that. Okay, so you're just continuing as usual. So now you're going to be working around the back of your kimono, or what the back panel would be, and you're going to keep going until you get to that very next corner. Once you get to this corner, you're going to do the same thing. See how that's the front panel? And then you're just going to place 2 double crochets here and then meet up with this corner here and do the same thing. 2 double crochets. That will close off or create the hole for your second sleeve, and then you will continue to finish the bottom end of your next front panel. So once you've done that, I'll meet back up with you and I'll take you through beginning the body of your kimono. Okay, so we've done it. We've created our sleeve holes there. And now the rest is going to be Netflix heaven for you guys, because it's just going to be an easy peasy repeat of all the rows you've been doing so far. And there are no corners anymore except for the ends and the beginning. So at the end or at the beginning of every row, you're going to chain 3, 2, 3, and you're going to work 2 double crochets into that first space. Okay, so remember, some rows will end with 2 double crochets, some will begin with 2 double crochets. So whenever you finish with 2 doubles, you're going to chain 3, go into the next space. You know the drill. It's all the same. And then I continue working the pattern like I always have for rows and rows and rows. Now, when you get to your first sleeve join there, you're simply going to work into that space as usual, and then you're going to work into the space here, and then you're going to work into the next space. So as you work further rows, that will get solidified. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do my first panel across, and then I'll just meet up with you very shortly to just guide you through that first little sleeve opening, and you will be good to go. Okay, I'm just working my last little mini V into that space before the join. Okay, so that's where I did my 2 doubles, and then I went right away over here. So there's a space here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work 2 double crochets in through that space. Okay, and that's going to keep the pattern continuous, and then I just jump right away over into the next space. And this solidifies this row. You see? So now you've fortified your sleeve opening, and now all subsequent rows are just going to be really easy to continue to follow. You just keep working into spaces every single time. Okay? You're going to work that all the way around, and of course, when you come to your next arm opening, you will do the same thing. 2 doubles, work 2 doubles into this space, and then 2 doubles, and continue on your merry way. And then from here on out, as usual, so see here I finish with 2 double crochets. I'll chain 3, turn my work, and now you're just going to do rows and rows and rows until you get the length that you are happy with for your kimono. That's why I said this next part is going to be perfect. Netflix happy, because you can throw on a movie, your favorite show, and just do mindless rows of mini little V stitches. So I will leave you here, and with the magic of video, I will meet you back when I've finished my full-length kimono. All right, I have now done 63 rows of my body of the kimono. So my work is looking something like this, and I just love how the colorway came out. Now you can tell that the darker stayed in the center. So when I started my second cake, I actually started with the darker color and worked my way towards the light. So the first cake, I started with the lighter color, which was on the inside, worked my way to dark, and then continued from dark to light. And that's just kind of an interesting way you can play with your color changes if you've got a self-striping yarn like I do. So now all we're going to do is the finishing touches. So the main thing you want to do now is try on your garment. So that's exactly what I did. And for me, 63 rows was just the right length. You can actually make yours obviously much longer if you want to create more of a duster look. But I was very happy with the 63 rows. And now all we're going to do is put a very simple basic trim along the bottom. And then we're going to work our trim up and around the collar area, just again to give it a nice finishing look. And I'm down to my last little bit here. So I feel confident I'm going to have enough left. And if I do, depending on how I feel, I might end up putting a little trim around the sleeves, but I'm not quite sure because I kind of like the way it blends naturally with the color. So again, these are different ways you can play with it. But in the meantime, let's get you started on doing your trim super, super easy, okay? Okay, so what we're going to do is you're going to pick up where you left off your last row here. Okay, so I'm going to pick up here where I left off with my last mini V, and we are going to do a nice basic trim with single crochet stitches. So all you're going to do now is chain one, turn your work, and right away we're going to go into that very first stitch there, and you're going to place a single crochet into that stitch. Okay, and then you're actually just going to place one single crochet into every single stitch all the way to the end. Okay, and depending on how thick you'd like your trim, you can do as many rows of this as you like. Now what I plan on doing is I plan on doing 3 rows of the single crochet. So you can see it just kind of gives it a little bit more of a finished edge. I'd say you can do anywhere between 3 to 6 rows if you want to have that nice prominent trim at the edge. So once you get to the end of your row, you're just going to do what we did at the very beginning. You'll chain one, turn your work, come back around. At the end, chain one, turn your work, come back around. And you'll do that for as many rows as you like. Like I said, I'm going to do 3 rows of the trim at the end for myself. And then I will meet back up with you to talk about coming up the side of our collar. So you can see it's not a bad edging here, but I just like adding a little extra something at the end. So go ahead and finish your bottom trim and I'll meet back up with you for the collar. Okay guys, so I have finished my 3 rows, and as you can see, it just creates this really simple little edging here, which I really, really like. So see, it's just really simple. Okay, so just nice and even there. It's a little finishing touch. And that's now what we're going to do up the collar. So I'm just going to take you through how to come around the bend, and then you are almost finished. So as you can see, I've just come to the very end of this row, and now we're going to come around the bend and work along the sides now of our little mini V rows. So what you're going to do is you're going to go back into that last stitch where you placed a single crochet. I'm just stretching it out. See that little space there? And we're going to place 2 more single crochets. So we have 1 and 1 more time, and we have 2. And as you can see, adding those stitches helps it bend right around the corner there. And now we're ready to continue working in through the side. Now, something you want to keep in mind is that number 1, you are working along the sides of stitches, and the fact that we use double crochet stitches. So generally speaking, into the side of a double crochet, you can comfortably fit 2 stitches. So that's what we're going to do. You're going to place 2 single crochets along the sides of each stitch. Now what we want to do here is the next little area was a single crochet row. So you're just going to find a spot there to insert and place 1 single crochet. And that was the next single crochet row right there. I'm going to try my best to work into actual loops instead of the spaces. I just feel like it's going to make things look a little bit more uniform. So next up I have a double crochet row. So I'm going to just, you might want to eyeball it because some people might go in here and then do 2 more. That would be too many stitches. So I'm just going to go along here trying to catch a couple of loops. Single crochet, and then I'm going to do 1 more. This is still into the side of the double crochet row. Oops. Just like that. So I've placed 2 single crochets into the side of a double. So you can now see as it's come around the corner, it just, oh, I love it. It's just a beautiful finished look. Okay, and that's what you're going to do all the way up. So now I have the next double crochet row, which in this case we did a chain 3. So you can either, which I'm going to try to, but sometimes it's not, yeah, sometimes it's a little testy. So in that case, I would go into the chain space. I generally don't like doing that, but it's just a personal preference. It's nothing major, but that's just what I like doing. Okay, and then just kind of sit back and look at it and see how you like it. Make sure it's not, the stitches are not bunching up or they're too far away from each other. And you'll know if they are, if it starts to buckle. And that is basically it. So I'm going to do that all the way up my collar here. And I'm going to work all the way around the neckline and back down, whoops, the collar down to the other side. So this should definitely be good for at least a Netflix show or 2. Now it's fairly straightforward, so I'm going to just let you go at it. When you come around to the little bend here in the kimono, you can just go along into each stitch along the way. Sometimes people will do what we call a decrease stitch here, but because we're just doing a single crochet finishing round, it's not super major, so I'm not going to worry about it. You just continue placing 1 single crochet into each stitch. So in this case, this is the initial chain row. So just continue placing 1 single crochet around. Now, you can do 3 rows just like you did on the bottom here, or you can just simply do 1 row, whatever is up to you. So I'm going to leave that up to you. Go ahead and finish that, and then we're pretty much finished our beach kimono. And there you have it, guys, the beach kimono done in the Raglan style. I hope you found it pretty easy. I'm sure you surprised yourself with how easy this was to create and really simple in the stitching, but such a great impact with this gorgeous yarn I found. And, you know, you can get really creative with the colors you use. If you want to make it in a solid color, it'll look just as beautiful as well. Now, if you have any questions at all, make sure to leave them for me. Leave a comment for me down below, or you can always reach me directly at info@crochetcrafty.com. And if you are new here, I invite you to press that subscribe button and click that notification bell, and come hang out with me every Wednesday when I upload a brand new project tutorial. And come say hi to me. I'm on Instagram and Facebook at The Stitch Sessions. In the meantime, guys, thank you so much for joining me this week, and I look forward to having you come along for more fun projects in the weeks to come. So take good care, happy crocheting, and I'll see you guys in the next session. Bye-bye.